I think everyone here has heard my spiel once before, so I don't even know if we have to worry about muting it. There's so few of us, but if there's background noise where you are, please do so. First time you speak, please introduce yourself by name and church, and we are recording, so just be thoughtful about what stuff you put out there. Like I won't talk about how depressed I will be when the Yankees lose 4 games in a row in the World Series tonight. You
Are
can
you
tell the type
missing
of
that,
home I
Gordon?
have right now.
Are you missing that right now, or is it starting at 9?
Starts at 8, I believe.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
they
Yeah.
But
usually
I
start
don't
around
know if I
8,
have
but
the
I'm not
heart to
sure.
watch another one. So friends, this is your time to have the conversations you want to have, and Sarah and I are eager to engage in those conversations with you. So please take the conversations where you want them to go.
Hmm.
Any burning questions?
I have no burning questions. This year struck me differently than past years. Um, Grapponi, we've been going there, I don't know how many years.
Wow.
But I remember back when we went to Brewster Academy. And I just loved being in that same kind of venue type. You're in nature and you just enfold it, embrace it. And I think that the word comes to me better. This the um oh, what's his name that spoke? His words were just to me very, very inspiring. I took a lot of it home and it I was talking to my minister. I am Brenda Pelkey, and I am from the United Church of Jaffrey. My minister is Mark Koyama, and we have discussed, and it was, he said, yeah, he liked it. And we took a lot from it. And in the past, I've taken things from it, but this time it just hit more home. I don't know, maybe the older you are, the certain things hit you harder, but it did this year, and I'm glad. I was able to bring my daughter, who has just recently come back to the church. And and she was inspired. And I'm like, wow, I got something going here.
That's great. Is she a member of the United Church of Jaffrey as
Yeah,
well?
she grew up in the church. And after she got married, she was always working on Sunday. So she could not, for the last well, 15 years or more, she could not come to church on Sunday. And she lived further away from Jaffrey. She lived in Winchester, which is a 40-minute drive to go to church every Sunday was a lot. But she just didn't. And her daughter is in college and she goes to Castleton College, and they have a church nearby, UCC Church, and she got into the youth group there and came home and has been coming ever since. Whenever she's home, she's in my church. And she has yet to join it, but she's in the midst of joining the church. So all three of them are there we're all there on Sundays, all summer long, in any vacations. And it's coming full turn and I love it. But it's just, you know, one of those things that's happened. And so many people in the church as I was growing up, my kids don't come to church anymore. I says, well, mine don't either, but they do now.
Yeah,
And it's wonderful.
that is
I'm
great.
not making them. Oh no.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful story to start our evening with. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you, Brenda.
I was sorry that I couldn't do the exhibits. That was the only thing that was a real big drawback. I didn't, by the time I got through the food, I was in the middle of the line, middle to late line. I couldn't take enough time to get up there and do them justice. So I didn't. So I don't know if that can change at all, but that
we
was my
we
only drawback.
we went in knowing that there was going to be some challenge around that. We tried to take our best swing at it,
Yep.
and we're going to continue to work at it to see if we can make happen. I think we may. We had talked about this and weren't sure how to make it work, and I think we may go back to the idea of we may try to um, see if we can somehow split the group and have half start with the exhibits and then come to lunch, and half start with lunch and then come to the exhibits because we also know the lunch line was incredibly long.
Well, I saw, Ogie, you gotta go down 2 by 2 down the stairs. I says, oh, that's gonna take a while.
Yeah.
I
So
probably should have just said foy with it and gone up to the exhibits first and then eaten, but I didn't.
we'll try to think that through and see if there's better ways we can accommodate all that.
And I was there early, and there weren't that many exhibits already. They weren't there early enough for me to see when I got there. So I was like, eh. But
Yeah, and the
enough
registration line
people
was
saw
really
them.
Yeah, I hope that people went in. But that's good feedback to hear.
And I heard that some of the exhibitors were very cold.
That was
They
probably
hadn't planned, or I don't know if the word got to them or not, but they said some didn't come prepared. I said, okay. I felt bad.
We tried warning folks, and some of us read our emails more frequently than others do.
Yeah.
By the you talking about Darrell's talk, be a good thing to say. We are just trying to confirm permission to post his slides on the annual meeting page. So those may be available in a few days for folks who are looking for them.
Well, I do know tweaking and changing will always be new in my life. I'll tell you that.
Yep, it's necessary. But so it's good to get feedback and know what worked and what didn't. And
Well, the tweaking and the changing is the one thing that hit me. I says, we tweak all the time, but darned if we can get them to change. It's like pulling teeth. I said, well, we are New Englanders.
Well, I'm Rebecca Massini. I'm a member of First Church in Concord, and I have two questions. But first, I want to follow up. I had a question at annual meeting, Gordon, about camper,
Mhm.
how much campers pay, and I'm just, I think, still a little curious. I didn't know where that came in the income side of the budget. And I know that Horton Center is definitely a mission of the church, and that we don't take in what is put out. It's just an incredibly important ministry in the state. So I just wanted to, I guess, find out some more information about that. How the
Sure.
cop thinks about it.
So when actually I have right here, because I'm getting ready for a board meeting on Saturday. The summary you all have is not the way we look at the budget during the year. It's a way we can kind of explain it when we're doing it as a budget for the future. But we actually run a completely separate accounting for Horton Center set of pieces when we're tracking things during the year. And what happens is this budget comes up with a bottom line piece, and that gets transferred into what you saw in this event program revenue stuff. It almost always shows up as a deficit because the cell tower income is actually on the main budget side, not on the Horton Center side.
Okay.
And then that balances out as that happens. So that's how it ends up on that page of paper. This year it would have looked as a zero because, well, no, it wouldn't. It would have looked as the same exact figure as the cell tower money because those two would have matched, and Horton Center has a completely balanced budget. So the pieces we mentioned, and I don't have the 2025 budget right in front of me, but we were just shy of 125,000 in camper revenue for the year. So that's direct revenue plus revenue we get from scholarships, which we take in because they're restricted funds and stuff. We had budgeted 105, so we were like 20,000 ahead of where we anticipated being. Next year we budgeted, I believe it was 117.5, close around there. So we're already ahead this year of where we're predicting being next year.
Okay. That's great. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And the second question was, and Sarah will know this because I'm on a committee with Sarah, but you know, I'm so thoughtful, Gordon, about what you're thinking about and what's going on with people that are maybe not licensed or even licensed in churches, and they definitely don't have a MDiv. They might have a little bit of background, but not too much. But like these churches are thinking about being shared ministry positions. And, I know we really need clergy, but I'm wondering, what are you thinking about that? Because I don't interact with you as much around the formation of, those interested in ordination. So I don't know where you're coming from as far, what do you think people need to be, ministers in our congregations? Or is it just so challenging that, what, we just have to hope that, people learn kind of on the job? Um, I'm just trying to find out where you're thinking as far as us going into the future in New Hampshire around, the need for clergy and congregations.
So I mean, I will talk about my thinking. My thinking alone isn't exactly how we do things. It's our collective thinking that impact things. But um, I do believe that there is a place necessary in the church for us to be able to say, hey, we identify someone's skills, and if we can assess that you have certain capacities, that we will help train you for the work as you're doing some of the work. In a lot of the churches I was working with in South Dakota and Nebraska, we'd really go in and say, your next pastor is most likely in this room, and our job is to raise them up and help prepare them for that work. Because that was really, for many of them, the only way they were finding folks. In my 3.5 years in South Dakota, I had 2 clergy who came from outside of the state, for 79 churches. Uh, and so that's trained. It doesn't mean to me that there's not certain capacities, just, oh, I feel like I should do this, to me isn't enough of a call. First of all, we very strongly believe that call is something affirmed by multiple settings, and not just an individual sense, but it's affirmed by the local church and it has to be affirmed by another place as well. To me, that's really important part of this, is that there's recognition of that call from multiple settings of the church. And I think there are certain capacities that you have to demonstrate, even while we will say, well, I'll train you for some of the work while you're doing the work. For me, key among those is really falls into the last item in the ordained minister's code to me, which is you have to be able to self-differentiate and keep boundaries. And I kind of take all those other skills, pastoral care and preaching and being able to do outreach and being able to do Christian formation, all those. And for me on the scale, those and the self-differentiation and keeping boundaries are about on equal level for me. If you can't do that piece, you can unintentionally, or maybe in some cases intentionally, be a danger to the church. We can teach pastoral skills. While we can help you learn deeper into those things, you have to have some basic foundation for them to start with, or you can be a danger. So that's really where I put a lot of my my thinking of, you got to get that part before we say, yes, go do that. And then show us that you have some capacity to grow and an ability to preach or pieces. I think always there are some success stories in this and some challenges in this. I happen to be Aaron Wessel's licensure advisor. I think Erin's brilliant. I mean, oh my God, I am so glad that we have brought her in and have her doing some of this work. And that's not everybody. So it's still a process of discernment. The church still has to identify and say that this is okay, and not just to say the need trumps all.
Mhm. I think one of my concerns is about the shared ministry, and you probably don't know this, but my husband and I were co-pastors of the Limetown ministry in the 90s.
Mhm.
And so we had two churches. And so I I found, and I think my husband found, a shared ministry is incredibly complex, and I mean, we had a little bit of background behind us, my husband much more than I did, but it's just it really talked about differentiation of self and kind of emotional maturity. It needs a lot. Do you know what I mean? And I think, those of us who went through a theological school and CPE and feel that, when we went through those kind of rigors, we had a lot of people looking at us. And so when we got to that place of this shared ministry that was so challenging, we maybe, had people knew us really well to know that maybe we could manage it as challenging as it was. But it seems like there's a lot of people coming through that they don't have a lot of background, they don't have a lot of experience, or definitely not theological school, because very few of our mids have theological school. So they're coming into these possibilities of shared ministry that's like it's a little bit, I guess for me, like a little bit frightening to think of them going into that very complex situation without a lot of the rigors that maybe other people went through.
I totally hear that. I say to our committees on ministry a lot that this process of discernment only works if you feel you're able to say no, because that's also a faithful answer in this process. Um, and often, well, not often, sometimes is the right answer for the situation. I think of um, the two situations, they're the two that come off my head, where we've had somebody who is licensed that's been serving a pastor sharing piece. I don't know the full history for one. One was Tracy May. At least she was pursuing some academic rigor as she was doing things. Um, the other was Maureen Adams, and Maureen at least had years of experience in one church before engaging in the other. I think that both of those pieces gave those committees some things to think through. Um, the Tracy May one's a little more complicated because it's across two associations, but from what I've seen since I've been here, I think they did their due diligence and all. Um, but yeah, I would at least say from my perspective, um, while I think there's a place for raising somebody up in a licensed ministry or lay ministerial standing component, I would not immediately step them into a pastor sharing type thing. I think that's too much.
And the other thing around that, I mean, it seems to me, and I've really been thinking about this a lot, about the raising of people up. It seems like as we walk into the future, there will be more of these people kind of raised up in a congregation. I mean, some seem to want to stay in their congregation, or their congregation identifies them and their congregation can't find a pastor. So they want this person that they've, raised up. And do you think that is going to come more and more? And do we have to think in terms of that as far as their formation? Did that make sense?
Maybe. uh, I think that ministry more and more are going to have ministry preparation more and more is going to have untraditional elements to it. I mean, I think the last 2 decades of learning has shown us that. Um, that said, I think that makes the work that our committees on ministry and such do on discernment that much more important. I don't know if that answered your question, but
I guess. And I guess also then the training comes like it's really hard to do discernment as you
Absolutely.
you know, and we are relying on not people that are kind of professionals in theological schools, or otherwise. We're relying on, us as clergy and lay people to do that discernment. And it's very challenging.
Yeah, I totally hear that. I mean, you know who I'm married to, so I get earfuls about that all the time. Uh, the and I take that seriously. And the only counter I would offer, and I know that this is, I mean, I think it's part true and part hyperbole, is that really ultimately discernment has always been about those clergy and lay people doing it. There were professionals who offered tools to help with some of that assessment, but the bottom line has always been fitness for ministry, and there's no professional that grades that. That has always been up to those clergy and lay people, and we need to own that this is something that we've had some instinct in doing for a long, long period of time. Doesn't make it easy by any stretch, but we've proven we can do the hard work.
Yeah, I probably would respectfully disagree with that. Not that it's been done, but I think in past decades, we just had so much more support in doing that, and rigorous
Absolutely.
other, as you say, like professionals looking at someone. Like I think of the members in discernment where, they write a self-assessment, or I try to figure out who and what they are and what their gifts are. And like so many times I would write down not enough information, when we're looking at the marks of ministry.
Yeah. Certainly what we've had in the past is a lot more partners.
Yes, many more partners.
Totally agree
Many
with
more
that.
eyes, many more eyes on an individual to, assess, or, think about weaknesses or gifts and weaknesses or challenges in ministry and needs for development. Yeah, seems.
And perhaps part of our challenge is, um, I think we know now that not all those tools that have been there before are going to be there for us in the future, but how do we continue to foster having partners that can do that with us, even if they're not the same partners? Um, yeah, it's a changing world.
Yes.
I mean, I hear you. I'm not sure I would have totally chosen the course that we are on. Um, and we have a church that has ministry needs to be met, and we'll try to find the best ways to adapt and meet those.
I appreciate that. Well, I've been able to talk to Sarah about it, so I haven't kind of talked to you. And I mean, you're both very responsible for church and call, and I'm just committed and passionate about the formation and encouragement of, clergy and pastors, pastoring churches, because I think it's such a tough job. So thank you, Jordan. Jordan, I
Please
appreciate
don't
it.
ever give up that passion. We need that. And um, as much as the church is changing and we need to adapt, um, we also see what happens, because we deal with that side of it too, when somebody isn't adequately trained or adequately prepared. And um, I mean, I assure you that, at least for me, that rests on my heart every day we do this work. And um, I want churches to have leadership that's going to help them thrive. And am at least keen enough to know that's not everyone.
And, right now I facilitate the newly called group, and I have to say they are just amazing clergy. I mean, some of the clergy coming into New Hampshire, they are just mature and thoughtful and faithful, and just I see them growing and developing and working on themselves all the time.
It's good to know that our boat giveaways are actually working. It. No. I mean, that's credit to everybody in this conference because we make this conference what it is. And I know enough to know that that's attractive to people who want to come here to work. You all have any other conversations you want to explore?
I don't.
I asked my questions. When are you going on sabbatical, Gordon?
A week from yesterday.
Oh, wonderful.
It is Tuesday, right? I lost track.
Yes,
So,
it is.
yeah, a week from yesterday. Perfect. Yeah, that's right. It's a week to the election, so it is Tuesday.
Oh, it's the day before the election?
Yes.
That was good timing.
Well, I have a little reading that I ended our session with on Sunday. Couldn't remember the day again. And just want to share that with you all today. The image we had for the annual meeting, as we were talking about the Potter and stuff, was Kintsugi pottery, which is that pottery that when there's broken pieces gets filled in with gold inlaid to hold it all together. And coming out of the annual meeting, I had somebody send me this poem and it just touched me. So I decided this was something I would share when we were together for these conversations. Like a hammer, deliberate or careless, jostling child, life fumbles us from safe, obvious heights to smash to shards and scattering dust. Yet, though shattered, we may have the fortune to feel the warm, compassionate hands collect our fragile fragments of broken selves. With care that glitters brighter than even the purest gold, they join the misshapen bits together, leaving a web of fretwork of shimmering seams that forever remind us when wounds are healed by love, the scars are beautiful.
Nice.
So, well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Happy sabbatical.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
Merry
Have a good rest of your night.
in 2025.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Sarah.
Thank you.